I mean, that's our goal, is to stay under that 18-month mark. Obviously, if we can stay less than that would be ideal. But it really is intended to be a long-term program where the gentlemen who stay with us are partnering with us and investing in themselves. Probably the biggest thing about Passport, as different from our harbor program, is they are meeting with case management on a regular basis. We do a full SPDAT. We're going to do that every quarter on individuals if they stay with us longer term. So we've got some way to measure, are they hopefully advancing or making improvements? And so that's kind of what we're using to measure that. They have to participate in classes. They would take financing basics. They would take, we've got a cooking class as those are getting ready to hopefully get into housing. Health and hygiene. I'm looking for a job. Well, do you know how to use the internet? Because if you don't, you probably should. So we have a Computers 101, how to write a resume, mock interview classes. And so we really look at the time that these individuals stay with us, and I've kind of ripped off a term from Sheriff Laney. He said that they do not want the Cass County Jail to be a warehouse for people. Neither do we. If someone wants to stay with us longer term, that's fine until they get into housing. We'd rather that they stay with us than go back on the street. And while they're with us, to hopefully partner with us in that investment piece. Little rabbit trail, one of the cool things about our cooking class, it's an 8-week session. If they finish the whole thing, they get a crock pot. So there's kind of some fun incentives to helping our gentlemen. One of the classes is teaching them how to read labels and why nutritional eating is important. A nutritious meal doesn't mean a burrito and a cup of coffee at holiday. You know, let's our desire is to really help as these gentlemen are getting ready to move into housing. Now, one of the things that, so I'll shift gears there and start just talking about the great shift that I've seen. Not that we have not worked with Fargo Housing in the past, we always have. We've always been there as one of the shelters who's been trying to get folks off the street into housing. But I think a couple things have really lined up. Us being able to do that VI SPDAT and get a measurement of where someone is. Our new program, which is being very intentional about holding men accountable, from February 1st through the first week in March, we as in together, our agencies housed 14 people. That is the most individuals that I have seen in my 6 years in a short period of time get into housing. The next part of our program that I want to see put into place is an aftercare program on our end, which then will help those individuals in partnership with some of the community case managers and CLS. Our goal is to help these guys and these folks succeed because we don't want them back in the shelter. And so that will be for the future, but that's one of the big things. That and substance abuse recovery are the two things that I see that we really need to focus on. So I have a few minutes, a brief 30,000-foot flyby on mission and our partnership. Questions? Anything I can answer? Yes, sir.
Do you still maintain a contract for emergency shelter beds with Southeast Human Service Center?
We do.
We used to have 5.
Yep.
Available with 5 beds.
Yep.
And then,
Yes,
if
we
you do, how does that interface with the emergency shelter?
The component of either of the programs?
Yeah.
First question, yes, we do. I have not seen that utilized hardly at all this year. I'm not sure why. In fact, just yesterday I was on a phone call with someone and I need to call over and just connect and find out why it hasn't been utilized a little bit more. Last year, we had 2 to 3 guys almost year round. This year we've had maybe 2 to 3 guys total. I mean, it's something that's significantly changed. As far as how they would fit into the program, we would not stop them from moving ahead. Let's say we did line up housing. We would certainly, if they wanted to move that direction, we would certainly work with them to do that. And if they said, I'd like to complete treatment or counseling, whatever I'm going through, because it's they're contracted periods of time, If they did say, I really am concerned about going back to drinking, if I get into my own place, I'm gonna get kicked out and end up back in the shelter, and they're in contract, we would suspend, or not suspend, we would hold off with them if their name did come up. We would consider holding off with them and allowing them to finish their treatment before they moved into housing. Now, it's not cut and dried, but that's kind of what we've talked about. We haven't run across that yet, but that's the goal of the new passport program, really, is to individualize the care that we provide, the services we provide, I should say. And so we'd have a discussion with them. We'd probably have a discussion with whoever is our contact over here too, is what's the best thing for this individual.
So how different is this than what we're doing with Cooper House?
I will let you address Cooper House end of things a little bit more.
So Cooper House is a continuum of care project. And for the VI Spadant, they have their own screening. We screen every week at the Moorhead Library with about 20 agencies. Cooper House has been allowed to have some more high-level folks that maybe are more specialized in addiction and legal services and whatnot. They meet once a month, but they use the VI Spadant, but they have to go for the high numbers. Supportive
Life
housing
Center
goes,
or Cooper?
no, Cooper takes high numbers
Cooper
because
takes
we're
high.
supportive housing.
Okay.
On our pilot program for our programs like the high rise, we take those low numbers. So a Cooper number may be a 15 to an 11. Rob's folks or any of the shelter folks that we take that might go into the high rise, we did 5s, we did 4s. There were no 3s, and the next group are coming in 2s and 1s. So there's very few issues they have, and they're taking up shelter space. They're in what HUD calls the rapid rehousing group. You know, they looked at all of their social factors and what's happening. They're like, there's really no reason they should be taking up a shelter bed. They should be able to make it in mainstream housing.
And I think part of it too is we don't want to be long-term housing. We don't want to be, that's, you know, we don't want these folks to rely on us long-term. I'm going to tell just a very quick story about an individual we just helped get housed, and I actually was part of helping him get moved in. It just happened that staffing, okay, I don't wear a coat every day, trust me. Let's get this guy moved in. And I remember 4 years ago, when I was the assistant director, we also were short on staffing that day, and I had to drive the truck for the store. I needed a helper, and so this gentleman hopped in with me, and it got to be about noontime. We got done picking up our donations for the day, or for the morning anyway, and I knew we were going to miss lunch if we got back, so I stopped and bought him a burger at Arby's. We were sitting there talking, and I said, so, I wanted to get to know him a little bit. Where are you headed? You know, what about housing? You want to get into your own place someday? Really kind of making small talk. And I will not forget the way he looked at me and said, well, of course I want to get into housing, Rob. Doesn't everyone? And so I'm still relatively new at the shelter, okay? This gentleman bopped in and out of our shelter over the last number of years. This was 4 years ago. He was one of the guys we moved in a month ago. And it's also part of the reason I wanted to make an excuse to help him move in. And I said, do you remember that conversation we had over roast beef 4 years ago? And he said, sure I do. And I said, I'm so proud of you, and I'm also just giving you, congratulations on, he needed some help navigating the system. He's going to be fine in housing now. But he is a success story of someone who, in the craziness of the river that these guys jump into, someone needed to grab him and say, okay, let's get you into housing. And that's part of what we did with our program, but together too. So it was just kind of a neat, not an abstract story. I know this guy personally, and it's a good thing.
So when you look at skill level, where most of the people are coming in, where would you say average where they are in terms of being able to master through this program and go to the level you want them to get in terms of gaining and keeping housing?
Boy, that is a great question. Part of the challenge we see and we all know is the issues and struggles that someone who is homeless deals with on a regular basis. And I'm not just talking about being, I'm not talking just about addiction or mental health. Homelessness in and of itself is very destructive to a person. And so part of it is rebuilding this person up and saying, you can do this, you can accomplish this. Some guys need very little confidence building. They come in, something threw them off track, they're with us for a short period of time and they're on their own. Some guys like this gentleman, his skill level is there, he works on a regular basis. He needed someone to come alongside of him and give him some of that confidence and to take him through some financing, simple financing. He didn't know how to manage his money at all. We haven't been operating the program long enough under our new format to really give numbers like that, but you invite me back in a year and I'll give you a little better answer to that.
Great.
This sounds like a very exciting thing, and I'm glad that we're able to partner together.
I am delighted, and just honestly so excited. Our case managers have gotten to know your staff, some of the key staff that they work with on a regular basis, and it is an absolute win-win. So,
How is that?
well, it gets blurry. We've got about 29 between the shelter and the thrift store. Some of them float back and forth between the two, because the thrift store is right in our building, it's right in the shelter, attached to it. So 29 total. Our budget's a little over 1.3 million this year for the whole organization.
But really, I have a long history working with the New Life Center. It really sounds like this transition that's evolving is moving New Life Center from an emergency shelter exclusively to an emergency transitional facility, so that you can teach the skills to the individuals so that they can transition versus just say, you're going to stay here tonight and then what are you going to do tomorrow?
And you nailed it, and there's a term that we use for that. We're a member of the Association of Gospel Rescue Missions. We're a Christian-based organization. And the benefit that I have received as the new director and as a new executive working with individuals who are homeless is I get to rub elbows with some of these guys who've been doing this for years and decades across the country. There's over 300 rescue missions.